What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Dugout Coalition. We're rolling in episode 2 here. We got the crew back on live here on the Zoom call. Today, we're kind of extending on that first week's topic as far as leadership. We're going to get into some really cool research that Coach McMullen has over there from the University of Washington, and just some really good feedback as far as following up on last week's episode and getting more into how do you implement the general leadership amongst a team and a unit, and what does that look like? With some examples of some athletes and some people that we've coached, some people that we've played against, played with, that have displayed pretty good leadership and given you guys some examples for it. So without further ado, I want to get into this. But to clear up the elephant in the room, I don't know if you guys remember the last episode's video, but there was this sketch mannequin in the back. I don't know if anybody else recognized the sketch mannequin.
Yes.
I was going to go in the
absolutely.
same spot. Dude, I was going to go in the same spot again today. But it really kind of haunted me. It was real weird. It had no head. It was just looking at me. It wasn't cool. So I want to clear up the elephant in the room real quick. But let's get into it.
Yeah. You got EMAC over here. Just even the ones just pointing it out, man. Like,
EMAC was pointing it out?
Yep.
Oh, she's just better at shoot and wall ball. She's got the good toss.
I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I figured you were on your phone. You were glitching the whole time. And nobody was going to tell you either. Well, let's get rolling. Let's get into it. So, Cameron, I want you to kind of break us out with this because it was really cool, really interesting information that you've got for us. And I think it sets the tone, sets the foundation for today. And I think a lot of people can get a lot of value out of that. And we can kind of elaborate on that topic. So go ahead and let it rip.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And at its core, the question that we were looking at while I was in the Center for Leadership and Athletics up at the University of Washington, at a basic level, was how do you develop leadership amongst the program? And more specifically, can you develop general team leadership the same way that you would develop captains, let's just say? And while there are a lot of similarities, they are in fact a little bit different. And so one thing I was hoping to do was just at least introduce some of the main thoughts that came from that, and then more specifically only dive into the first part, and then eventually throughout the discussion probably reference some of the others. But the 4 thoughts that came about from how do you develop general leadership in a program is, 1, you have to first differentiate between what leadership is and then what a captain is. It just gives that clarity to a lot of the players and recontextualize things a little bit easier. 2nd, you have to play an active role in the development. You can't just assume that what you're saying is being registered. There has to be dialogue. There has to be communication. There has to be reflection, all those sorts of things. The second and more obvious is you have to build strong relationships with your players. That's something that you're going to hear quite a bit, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on that. And then the last one, and probably the hardest, is you have to share responsibility and decision-making. And that's tough as a coach because, like we've talked about, once the game starts, it's really out of our hands. And so they're a product of our preparation. They're a product of our coaching at that point. And so those are really just the 4 jumping off points that we found in the literature. The one point I'd like to just expand on a little bit is how to differentiate general leadership versus captains. And it really stems from informal versus formal leadership. Informal is essentially a leadership position that anyone can take over time. It's more based on your personality. So are you an extroverted? Are you emotional? Can you give good communication? Can you speak well? Can you give passionate speeches? Things like that. Or are you more of a lead by example guy where your work ethic and your routine, things like that, are going to be what puts you in that position? Where when you start talking about captains, more formal leadership, there are some unique things that captains should have. Captains theoretically should be a reflection of the head coach. They should be a reflection of the coaching staff. So you have to have a little more diversity in your skill set. You have to communicate. You have to be able to organize thoughts. You have to really essentially, based on the research, do 3 things. Be a bridge between the coaching staff and the players. You have to lead team activities, and you have to represent the team and the community. And those are essentially the 3 core points. Obviously, there's a lot of different directions that can go off of those. But the easiest example that I'd like to just kind of end with before the discussion starts is if you think about an hourglass. So you have all the sand at the top, there's the little divider in the middle, and then all the sand goes through the bottom. That's essentially how the theoretical process would work, where you have the coaching staff on top, in the middle is the captain, and the sand represents all the information. So the information starts up top, goes down to the players. The players talk about it, give the information back to the captains, and then you flip it, and then the information goes back to the coaches. So the information just flows in kind of a north-south way, where the captain in the middle is the one that has to process the information, think how to communicate it. How can I put it in terms where the coaches understand? How can I put it in terms so the players understand? And make sure that everything is flowing as efficiently as possible. So I know that was kind of a lot all off the gate, but I thought it could just be a nice way to maybe put some thoughts out there. So you guys have such great experiences. Hopefully that can at least maybe give a little clarity and a little foundation to where the conversation goes.
Yeah, I think that's massive, man. I think that's a great way. Thank you for sharing that too, because I know we all already learned a little bit just from that quick snippet of a few different types of leadership that you can display every single day. And I think the biggest thing that pops up into my mind is like, how do you, as a coach now, if you recognize, say you gave that sermon, say somebody knew that it's got to start with me, I've got to share responsibility with my athletes. As a coach, like, how do you share the responsibility with the athletes? And I don't know if you guys have any examples of this, of maybe something that you've done or something that a coach that you played for did, or somebody that you noticed on your staff as you guys have been going along did this with a player, where they shared responsibility with the athletes during the game and like showed that type of leadership where they really empowered their guys and maybe bridged that gap there. I don't know if you guys have anything. Ray, I know you got your mic unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think it's leaving the little things, you know. Coach Johnson and even Coach Hill both, when you're the player of the week or the player of the day, you get help selecting the music, you know, something small like that. Uniform choices, you know, the catchers this year, hey, what do you want your gear to look like? You know, that's them, you know, they want that swagger. So starting small there, and then even branching off into, hey, we're going to work on drop steps today in the outfield. What kind of drills are you looking for? Anything you can to bring them in on that. Like Cam said, the captain's the bridge. I like that a lot.
I love it. I love the bridge aspect too, of bridging the gap. And talk about swag. Man, you get pumped. Like if you're a player, dude, you get to go out there and you're like, yo, bye. You get to pick the pregame playlist. You get to play your Latino music. You get to play your 2000s hip hop. Like you get to get it pumping. Like we're gonna get dancing out here. Maybe we do our rave music like Ray Mac, just pumping it in the back. Like you've got all these different options that empowers you and picking the drills too. What about you guys? Anybody else got anything on that? Any examples maybe that they've seen? Bradshaw?
Well, I was just going to continue off that a little bit just to kind of reiterate what Ray was saying. But I've always been a believer that like players, they own what they help create. So I like to, you know, let them know that, hey, like this is your team. This is your career. I'm here to help you develop. So they, you know, I always like to get their input on things, you know, their own plans, you know, all those things, the music, what they're, you know, anything that really has to do with the team or their own development. I like to get their say. And I think that that's important. So yeah, they own what they help create. And I think, the leaders, when they're taking control of that, that's a good thing.
So are you, like, as a coach then, are you constantly just asking them questions? Like, do you think it's a big aspect of leadership is asking questions with your athletes to build the trust with your athletes rather than being a dictator who just sits in his office and never really shows up and kind of just maybe you just have a different old school approach?
Yeah. I'm always checking in with guys and trying to get them to talk. You know, the way I kind of look at it is help them do the mental work. I'll guide them, but I want them to do the thinking, because if I'm just telling them what to do all the time, then they become passive and reliant on, hey, I'm just going to do what I'm told. I'm going to do what he says, which, you know, I mean, once you build trust, you know, they're going to trust what you say, but ultimately I want them to be thinking for themselves. And yeah, and just I'm always asking them questions, and a lot of the communication that goes back and forth is just like me listening, and just asking them questions. So yeah, I was just answering your question thereby.
Yeah, I think that's huge, Shaw. And we got a little guest appearance by Snoop a Loop over there in Ray Mac's screen. I wish everybody could see that.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Very first podcast ever recorded, Snoop starts walking on the podcast, like on my computer, like dusts us, just like getting his flavor in. He's always got to be seen. So Snoop, I respect it. You heard the flag. We're empowered to be in this video right now. I wish somebody could see that.
Sorry.
I think we'll go you, Whis, because everybody's mic's kind of muted. We can just go with whoever. Whis, you want to start it off with what you had something to say? And then I'll go up to you, Wilkes and Cam.
Yeah, I was going to go off a little bit of what B-Shaw was saying there too, is I think they feel more connected to the team when you can really give them responsibility on making choices and making decisions. I think it's a huge piece. I know for us, we kind of set the standards of our program, and those are never crossed. Those boundaries are never crossed. They will always be the same. And our team is instilled with those. But then practices, community outreach, any community projects that we're doing, we kind of leave that up to the guys in a sense of how are you guys going to organize this and how are you going to approach this? And I think a big piece to that is the failure piece to it too. Trial by error. You know, we know giving these guys the responsibility that there's going to be hiccups, but that's what we want, especially at our level when we have, like we discussed a little bit last time with the amount of 18-year-olds that we have on our team. It's a huge piece for them to feel connected, to feel joined in and be a part of it. But at the same point, making a decision and then living with the outcome of that decision, whether it's good or bad, I think it's a huge, huge piece when you look at leadership. And to Cam's piece with the captains, that hourglass thing, wow. I mean, what a great way to kind of visually see that. And it is totally true. It's absolutely true. If you can't find that bridge, a player on your team that can bridge the message that you're trying to send to your guys, it's going to be a battle for you. It just is going to be a consistent battle for you. So anytime you can pick out a guy that's able to communicate what you're trying to say to the team, it's huge, because we all know as coaches and as leaders and talking to young players, our message can only go so far. You know, hearing a different voice, and especially hearing a voice that you're grinding with on a daily basis, who's in the weight room with you, who's in the classroom with you, who's doing everything that you're doing, who can preach the same message that you're trying to send to your guys in a different voice, I think is extremely important. So yeah, just going off what you guys are saying, that's a huge piece to a program to establish a captain, to be able to balance what your standards are and what your message is to your team.
It's huge. It's huge. You hit on a couple of things there. One, the hourglass is freaking awesome. And then two, like ownership, taking ownership. We'll get into that. I got some questions now following up, but Wilkes, let me hear it, man. Let it rip.
Yeah. So one of the ways that I like to share responsibility with our players is even, with the throwing program. What I like to do is, let's say 90 feet plus on it, so I at least want them to go 90 feet, but if they want to extend it, they can. That's totally up to them. I give a lot of freedom in everything that we do, even with the conditioning. I'll meet with our guys, each week, and, I'll let them kind of choose their conditioning, just so they take ownership in what they're doing. And I kind of get a feel for how they feel, throughout the week, whether that's in terms of lifting weights, whether they're tired, anything like that. It's just constant communication with them and, let them take ownership in their careers. That's the biggest thing for me. And I just allow a lot of freedom with the throwing program, the bullpens. They're allowed to throw off the mound whenever they want. There's no, guideline with that. Just giving them a lot of freedom in their careers, I'd say.
Love it. I love it. Cam, what do you got?
I actually had a question that I was curious about, and this question is to you, Jake. I have so much respect for how you guys have to handle the community college level and just some of the unique challenges that go into it. And what I've generally been curious about was, as you get through the recruiting landscape, you have some kids that may have dreamed of wanting to play at BYU or wanting to play at USD or, whatever the case may be, where when you get kids in, right, wrong, or indifferent, I assume that they view the community college level as this is a means to an end. And so how do you guys battle, especially if I'm not mistaken, you guys are a new program, correct? And I apologize, I'm not too familiar.
Yep.
Especially as a new program trying to build not just your own infrastructure, but the culture, the leadership, all that sort of stuff. How do you guys balance that? Okay, we still are trying to build this thing from the ground level. We're still trying to move our guys on, but we're still trying to establish an identity as a program. That seems like impossible to me.
Right.
How have you guys managed that?
Yeah, Cam, it's like you said, it's a tough battle. But I think a big piece is having guys like you guys to explain to our players, the culture piece and what we try to instill on our guys on a daily basis. It comes from coaches like you, to be honest with you, because we are able to tell and relay that message to our guys that this is the same exact things that they're looking for in their programs. And if you want to play at an Oregon State, a San Diego, a BYU, Chapman, Dixie State, you've got to have a foundation. And that's what we talk about with our guys all the time and preach over and over again, that the foundation of what we build here and the legacy that you guys leave here impacts where you go next. And I think for us, it's very simple. We bring in 35 guys. You see a lot of teams that really bring in 70 to 80 dudes every year and they drown it out, where Jeremiah and we've kind of sat down a lot and we've restructured some things to where we want to bring in the 35 best human beings that we possibly can. It's real life. So to your point, Cam, we really, really push on that culture piece and push on using you coaches and you leaders outside to say, hey, this is what these guys are talking about too, and this is what they're looking for. Sure, talent's a big piece to that, but they're all talented at that level. I mean, what's going to separate you from the next guy? And I think it's that foundation, it's that culture. And for us, if it's just an ongoing battle with our culture and buying into our program, you're not going to be here long. To use you guys as a foundation is huge for us. So, cutting out again.
You're good now. In and out. It's all good. It's that Oregon connection, man. You guys are down in the bayou. It's a little different out there. No, I think that brings up some really good points. And hitting on just the initial discussion part of Cam, you bringing up that informal versus formal leadership. How do you empower your teammates? How do you empower leadership on your team? Is it something that you can just totally place in there and like just give somebody a leadership role? Like, can I just tell you, Whisler, that you're going to be the leader for this team? And like, does that help me, or is it easier to just let my team develop leadership on its own? So going into you guys, like, I'm going to just open the flood. Whoever unmutes and goes first, feel free to let it rip. But like, do you think that it's easier, and maybe use both tactics, but do you think it's easier to just let your athletes almost determine who the leaders are? And like, as the fall plays out, you can learn who's going to step up and be a leader? Or is it easier on your end as a coach and better for the team if you just say, hey, you two guys are going to be the team captains. You two guys are going to take the lead of this team, whether they're in a position to lead or not, whether they believe they can lead or not. Like, you two guys are going to lead this team, and it's up to you to make sure that things are going in the right direction, that this boat is rowing to our destination. What do you think?
That's tough, man, because it's good if you make the right picks. You know, like, if you're going into it going, hey, you two are our guys, you're going to lead this squad, and they turn out to be some bad apples, you know, maybe not necessarily bad apples, but they're not quite doing the right thing all the time, they're going to lose that respect, and they're not going to be able to pull as much weight as you're hoping that they're going to.
I like it. I'm genuinely curious about this, because I know just from different teams that I've been a part of, and I'm sure you guys the exact same thing. Like, there's been teams where somebody's been given the leadership title, and maybe that person wasn't suitable enough to lead, if you want to say, like, they just didn't have the qualities of a leader. They just showed up. And there were times where I think the team almost empowered who the leaders were. And those leaders weren't just seniors. Like, I remember my senior year in Nevada, a lot of you guys were around there. Some of the younger guys, Cal Stevenson, was playing, traded to the Blue Jays or traded somewhere now, but Astros maybe. But, dude, that dude was a freaking leader, and he was a freshman, like, taking bags, and his leadership didn't always come from voice. Like, he led the freshmen. He kept them on boat. And that was like, I know we're going to get into some examples of leadership that we've seen with teammates that we've had, or coaches that we've had, or in instances that we've played in situations. But that was one for me where this dude's a freshman, and like, I would listen to him. because he walked the talk, he did everything you need to do on a daily basis to be prepared, and it was very impressive. So I don't know if you guys got anything on that.
Double-edged sword for sure, man. I think players, as coaches, I mean, we all know, we've been a player before, players are going to know a little bit more about their teammates than we are. We had the players pick captains this year. And to be honest with you, John Wooden talks about it too in his book, where he picked captain. He had the players pick captains one year, and he never did it again. He chose his captains every single year, and I think it's a double-edged sword to where the kid does it right in the classroom. He's there first and last guy to leave, first guy there, last to leave, but then he has some off the field stuff that as a coach you might not know about that other players do. And you can totally tell too when it's a guy saying something and it's just a blank stare from the rest of the guys and it's in one out the other. That's when it's like, holy cow, maybe we did make the wrong choice, or maybe we need to reevaluate how we choose a captain. And I think it is like Raymax said, if as a coach too, you might be the guy that picks the bad apple. I just think it's a double-edged sword to where you really got to do your research and look into who you're choosing as a captain, and if your team really has a good feel for who that guy should be.
It's huge. Cam, let it rip.
Yeah, just to jump off, because so much of this is so right on, and we could go any different direction with it. But one of I'd say the easier things to just understand about this whole process is, I think one of the misconceptions about leadership when you let players choose is they just think whoever the best or most popular player is the captain, and that's not necessarily the way it works. Just because if you're going to have to invest so much as a coach, as a coaching staff, to make sure that your message is as clear as possible, there can't be any miscommunication going from the bridge, the captain, down. You have to have 100% faith that it's being communicated properly, and more importantly, it's being understood. Because one thing you want to avoid is having the wrong captain, and then the captain takes the information you have and says, coach is an idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about, here's what we're going to do. So now you think you're communicating one thing, but in fact the team is doing something totally different. And does that happen all the time? Probably not, but can it? Sure. And so it just goes back to some of the points that were brought up earlier. You have to have an open line of communication. You have to take your time. You have to recontextualize what leadership is. And it's such a tough choice that I've actually heard of some coaches that go no captains. They say no captains, many leaders. Like, I'll be the captain, I will control the message, and then we just develop the leadership from then on. What's right or wrong? Just whatever works, I guess, is kind of the easiest way to contextualize it. And the last point I'd probably just like to introduce, and I've always heard it phrased an interesting way that stuck, is leadership's really hard to describe but very easy to see. And so when you take the time to let it run its course, you're going to know who the leaders are naturally, just by who the players follow, who they associate with, and how they differentiate each other. And then at some point, we'll introduce the 10-80-10 rule. It's an awesome rule, but I want to let others share because there's been so many good points brought up.
Go ahead, Wilkes.
I know when I was a player, I'd always look at the guys who would, always show up early, whether it's to the weight room or to the field, and get their extra work in. I would gravitate towards that, and that would make me better. And one example, I'm not trying to feed your ego a little bit, but
baby. Like Zeke, we said it last time, baby. That's left-handed hit. I'm running back.
I remember in Reno, we would always be in the weight room, and it would be the same people, staying after the weights are done. It would be, Whitty, it would be you, it would be Cal Stevenson, Jojo Romero. It would be the same guys, and those guys ended up playing professional baseball. And that's one thing that I kind of followed, throughout my career, my playing career, and even my coaching career. And I remember another instance, where we're at Texas Tech your senior year, my junior year, and I see you, lifting at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, man, this is getting me going right now. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I love. And, I thought you were one of the best leaders, that I played with in my playing career. I was thinking about that question last night. I'm like, Bai is probably, the best leader that I've played with in my career. And, one other player that, I got to coach in Ray Mack and Bradshaw is, I'd say, Nick Quintana. That dude would be in the weight room early. He'd be showing up to the field 3 hours early and staying an hour after. And, those are the kind of things that I look for, in players, I would say, in terms of leadership.
Yeah. Now, what do you got, Ray? What do you got for me?
No, you're right, man. Coach Hill says it all the time. If you're a millionaire, you hang out with millionaires, brother. So you're staying in the weight room with the guys that are trying to make it to pro ball. It's the right people to be around for sure. And that group of 4 or 5 you listed off are pretty good. I mean, Joey, in the league, not next year maybe, but depending on how this goes. So, I mean, that's a good group.
Yeah, I mean, I think like copy genius, right? You see somebody make $1 million. Well, somebody figured out how to make $1 million. So why don't you just copy what they did to make $1 million? Like, don't go and reinvent the wheel. I don't need to go create this massive new leadership wheel. Like, let me look at some of the best leaders in the world. Let me go research what they do. Let me read a book maybe, or listen to an audio cast, or read or listen to a podcast of really good leaders, of very successful individuals. And maybe, just maybe, I'll learn something. But I think a lot of the time our ego gets in the way, and it's, I got this. I got it figured out. I don't need to listen to coach. And whether coach is giving you the right info or the wrong info, like at least acknowledging and respecting your coach. I think that could be a whole podcast on its own. But I think just going off you, Wilkes, just real quick, and then Shaw, I'll let you get into it because I know you got some really good stuff on this, and you obviously displayed a lot of leadership as an athlete and as a coach. And Wilkes, with the aspect of the weight room, like you notice where those people have ended up, like Whitty, he's battled cancer. Like the dude has been battling cancer for 2 or 3 years, was playing pro ball with cancer. Like the dude freaking was determined to beat it, and he's beat it. Like that's incredible. Like shout out Whitty, that dude's unbelievable. But it all started from the tools that he learned in baseball and sports that have developed him to be a leader for off the field. Like Cal and JoJo, obviously both one step away, one call away from the big leagues. For myself, like just trying to be an entrepreneur and inspire people and get out there and speak and do these awesome things. And I think it all started from our early days, being raised with great families and all of that. But I think personal experience too, like going through that and trying to set an example of something more. I know when I went back to Nevada for my senior year, it was about how do we win a championship? Like we've got 8 dudes who are hitting over 300. We've got a really good pitching staff and the best coaching staff in the freaking nation. And not just the best, like in my mind, as coaches, but the hardest working people. And that's like where leadership starts, like Cam was saying, that funnel effect where you see it at the top. Well, that freaking inspires and engages your athletes to work even harder because you see your coaches there all day. I need to be there. I need to be held accountable, take ownership, which we'll get into in a little bit, and show up to the field and set that example. And now like you're limiting some of those lower bugs, and that lower, I think you say like the top 25%, you got the bottom 25%, and then that middle 50 ground that's either going to go up or down. Like if you can get those middle 50 up to that top 25, like you're going to have a pretty good team. So Shaw, I don't know what you got on any of this, but dude, let it rip. I want to hear what you got.
Well, I was just going to kind of feed off what Wilkes and Ray were saying with, I mean, I had you written down as an example, and it's funny he brings up Quintana. Well, 2 things you guys share in common are obviously just putting in the extra work, constantly trying to get better at your craft, and just showing everybody what work ethic looks like, especially when that's coming from the best guys on your team. It's really powerful. The other thing that you guys, I notice, is that you're just a total buy-in to the coaching staff and the standards of the team. Everything about the team was just total buy-in from you guys. And then one more thing that I just always loved about you, Bai, is you're like the first dude to pump up a guy when he does something good. And it doesn't matter who it is. First guy out of the dugout, that's just something that I always like love about you. So that's what I had on that. And then I was kind of interested to hear, so like, we have this type of leadership with appointing captains, and we have this type of leadership where it's kind of organic and it's just a leadership amongst the group, and it kind of works its way out. I'd like to hear some examples of what guys that have been on teams and what they've seen one way or the other and what they feel like is more effective. For me, I think both can work, but I think it kind of depends on the team. And I think it's going more towards, the coaches aren't going to just appoint captains. It's going to be more naturally occurring, is in my opinion. But I'd like to hear some examples of that if we want to feed off that.
I'll start off, and I've got just a quick example in pro ball of two guys who displayed leadership without having to say a word. And in professional baseball, it's extremely hard to play unselfishly and to build a team culture. I think this year we had, I want to say it was Shelly Duncan was our manager the year that I'm thinking of. And we were in Visalia, California, and the California League. And there were two guys that really displayed leadership. And I'll explain why in a minute. But Ryan Atkinson, starting pitcher, still in the D-backs organization, I believe AAA now. He was up and down, big league deal. And then John Duplantier, there's no reason he shouldn't be the freaking fifth guy and eventually the ace of the Diamondbacks in a couple of years. The dude is disgusting. Like 95-mile-per-hour sinker moves like this, if you can see me, like at least 8 inches. And there's nobody more genuine, loving, and kind in the world than that big fella, dude. He is a freaking stud. So, I'm going to pump him up real quick. But those two guys, starting pitchers, mind you, and in starting pitchers, you pitch 1 day a week for the most part. Sometimes you get your second start. And as a position guy, I'm in the weight room every day because I've got to get my body ready to play every day. And in pro ball, you got 140 games or whatever it is, 140. And it's a long season. It's tough. It's tough to get through. Your body hurts, aching, whatever. So I'm in the weight room doing my thing, getting ready for the games at 1 o'clock. Mind you, game times are 7 o'clock, 7:10, whatever it is. And for starting pitchers, you guys know, a lot of you who are pitchers in here or who work with pitchers, there's no reason to be at the field before 4 o'clock. Why would you even need to be at the field if you're not pitching and you just pitched the day before or 2 days before? And what are you even doing at the field? These guys were there every day at the same exact time as a couple of us position guys. There's me and a couple other guys, and then those two pitchers every time. They were always in the weight room, and they didn't have to lift weights in the weight room to get better. They were doing foam rolling. They were working on mobility. They were picking the brains of their strength trainers and the other guys that were around there. Maybe when coordinators came in, they were picking their brains. They were learning the game of things that they can do to get better every single day without actually throwing the baseball. You don't have to go throw a bullpen or go pitch in a game to get better. They were evaluating their starts, evaluating what they did, asking us questions as hitters. Hey, what are you looking for 1-0? What are you looking for 2-0 count, bases juiced, bottom of the seventh, that situation last night? Asking questions, humbling themselves and detaching from the result of things and continuing to stick with their process that works for them, that they've made out for them, that's helped them. So that was a huge freaking thing of leadership, dude. And I don't even know if they even know that I was paying attention, but I don't even know if I ever even told them, but I watched. People see that. People see your actions, how you react every single day. And that was something that was huge to me.
And let it be known, Duplantier went to Rice, and that is still the best curveball I've ever seen out of a college arm. That dude was filthy.
Was that a tough day?
And a great dude.
Did we beat him though? Didn't we beat him?
We didn't necessarily beat him.
Not him. We won the game.
Shoved for 7.
That guy was stupid.
And then we ended up winning.
Yeah, that's right. No,
great kid. He was. It was weird that day he started. It was one of our first games, and he was walking in from class an hour before the game. Just crushed class. Came out, and that was one of those breaking balls that when he threw it, it sped up on the way down. Incredible arm, dude.
He's a stud, dude. An absolute stud. What do you guys got? And it can start with anyone. Just hop in, anybody who you've played with, who you've maybe seen as a kid that you coached, maybe a coach, a teammate, anybody that's displayed some leadership on the field in the clubhouse, a moment that you really remembered that stuck with you, that could really resonate with a lot of people out there.
Yeah, the one I thought about after you guys said we're going to talk about players and teammates and people we've played with. One that I think resonates with a lot of us, and it's kind of a weird deal, but Parker Miles, the dude, it's hard to explain because he was kind of the middle guy, right? He wasn't the rah dude, and he wasn't the dead silent guy. But every single day he showed up to the yard, it was game time. And you knew the guy was going to show up and absolutely get after it for his guys. And he had a little bit of a different story too, going to Chemeketa, you know, and then going to Santa Barbara, getting some play at Santa Barbara, and then it not working out, and then ended up at Western after a summer of me playing with him. Like, hey man, come to Western, come be a Wolf. Let's do this thing. All well knowing that this dude is going to be at second base. I'm gonna have to compete for a job with him. But the reason I wanted him was because the guy just makes people around him better because of how his game mentality is, and the focus and the energy that he brings on a daily basis. And it wasn't necessarily him getting into everybody or talking to the team, even though when that time came, he would be able to do that. I think he was a very, very good example of a teammate who would lay it all on the line for everybody on his team, and it showed with his performance. And talking about a guy, I consider myself a short guy. Ray Mack, we're in the same boat. This dude's shorter than both of us. So it's like, how does this guy come out here and just do it every day? And it's like, yeah, okay, if you're 6'3", dude, and you're weighing 215, you're rock solid, you got no excuse, man. This guy's putting up numbers like haven't been put up before, and you're over here slacking. Let's get going. So great teammate, good example of a guy like that who's kind of the middle dude.
P. Millie, dude. I'm telling you, man, when the three of us were playing infield at the Rogues, the average height was like 5'6.5".
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
No doubt. What was he? Realistically, 5'6"?
And that's reaching, man. That's a reach. He'd get on here and say he's 5'10", and that's total BS.
Please. But you know, he would take whoever. I remember one day, I don't know who it was, but he grabbed somebody by the jersey, and this is summer ball. He grabbed a pitcher by the jersey, said, "Pull your head out." I was like, this guy's the man, you know? That's leadership, I guess, you know? But realistically, he just wanted to win, and he made everybody better, and a great dude to be around.
Yeah, no, that's epic, dude. And the Three Stooges around the freaking infield, just letting it rip, dude. I can't even imagine that. You guys are slinging the rock. I mean, that's the most chippy, like, grinder infield I've ever heard of. Like, that's solid. That's solid. But Jake, real quick, like, just to point something out that you mentioned, you displayed leadership in that instance because you pulled him and said, dude, come be a Wolf with me. Like, I know I'm going to compete against you every single day. I don't want this to go unknown, too, because this is freaking huge. Because I had a kid tell me earlier this year, he plays at junior college in NorCal, and he's a catcher, and a new catcher came to the program, and he said, you're not taking my effing spot. Like, you're not going to do this, blah, 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 and, like, totally belittled the dude and, like, made him feel like crap. Like, made him feel terrible, like, said, hey, you don't belong here, basically. This is my spot. Which, okay, cool. Like, internally, maybe I can think that this is my spot, but, dude, challenge each other. Why not challenge each other? So I challenged him to be like, why don't you just challenge him and let's get better. Let's do some drills together. Let's catch more bullpens than the other. Let's frame more balls. Let's do something to challenge each other to get better. And that's what you did. You challenged him to take a leap of faith and make a decision to come play with you, where he could have totally taken your spot for the entire year, and you could have been riding pine, dude. Like, sitting on the bench, bat boy, freaking water boy, just pulling up cups for the guys, dude. But you said, no, I want to get better because this is going to make our team better. That's leadership. Shaw, I know you had your thing unmuted for a minute, so I totally cut you off. But
no,
you could let Jake go.
That's exactly what happened. So
beautiful.
Parker rake, man, and he just played damn near every game. And the thing was, it's like, that was probably the biggest year that I gained in my game, though, because he pushed me and I pushed him, and dude, and it worked out. Had a successful year, and it just that's how it goes, man.
It's amazing. Cam, go ahead.
Yeah, one name, and there's, I feel like 1,000 names we could just continue to go on, but one that's always stuck in my head for a variety of different reasons, TJ Friedel from his time at Nevada. He theoretically, if I remember correctly, was recruited by Coach Power's staff, came in with Coach Power's staff, stayed through Coach Johnson's time, stayed through Coach Bruce's time, came in as a recruited walk-on, did everything he was supposed to, right, wrong, or indifferent. His opportunities were varied by each staff, and that's going to be natural. Never complained, never got negative, never was going behind people's backs doing anything like that. Turned himself into the player that he is, that got an opportunity to play with the collegiate national team, got an opportunity to sign as a free agent with the Reds and has been in big league camp this spring training, man. Just everything you could want in a kid, literally being given nothing, earning everything he had through toughness, mentality, an undersized kid as it is, but everything that you would want in a player. And, you know, just speaking personally, one of my favorite players I've ever been able to be around. And I can guarantee I learned more from him than he did from me. That's for sure.
And being a teammate of his, that dude wanted nothing more than for the next guy to succeed. And I thought he was, you know, one of the best teammates that I've had in my career, you know, besides Byler. That dude wanted, you know, everyone to succeed and wanted nothing but the best for the team as well. Awesome guy. Awesome.
And look at where he is right now. He's what?
Yeah.
5'7", one step away from the big leagues.
Yeah.
It's just an awesome story. Awesome kid, awesome family. Just one of the best.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, we can all attest to him. And that guy just pure grit, pure guts, like had no reason to stick around. Like basically got told that you should probably transfer because you're not going to play for a couple of years at Nevada. Like you're just not going to play. And he said, instead of taking that as you're not good or I suck or poor me, he said, screw this. I'm going to work every day with the coaching staff in the cages. Every day he was in there working. Every day he was working after. Like he worked harder than a lot of the starters. And this dude had – like he wasn't going to play. He was like red shirting or gray shirt. And I don't even think it was a red shirt. It might've been like a gray shirt. I don't even know what that is. Like he wasn't supposed to be there. And look what happens. He gets the highest ever free agent signing contract in the history of the game. The dude's in AA or something like that now. He got invited to the big league spring training. He's playing. He's not just there. He's playing in spring training. Like they got rid of Billy Hamilton. He's got an opportunity to go right in there and play this year. And he had no business continuing on to the next level. No business.
He got yoked after his redshirt season, summertime. He got yoked. Like he was big. He was a big boy. That, you know, I remember in BP his redshirt year, he was just, you know, he was flying everything out, trying to go deep, and it'd always be warning track power. And then the next year, he started putting balls way out, like farther than you by. Like it was impressive.
Oh, dude, don't cut the ego. Don't cut my ego, dude, and then cut the ego. Like, that's a double-edged sword, bro. Like, you took Whisler sword, stabbed me in the neck, and then re-pumped me up just to stab me down again. Come on, brother.
Hey, I think one thing about TJ that's unique is that, like, he came in as a freshman, and that was my senior year, and he played a little bit, and then the next year, he was basically like, as a sophomore, it was like, hey, you're not going to play. So you're going to need to redshirt and develop and get better. And I remember Coach Johnson talking about it. He's like, he always thought TJ was going to be a good player. But that was the thing that TJ didn't do, is go, you know what, this is ridiculous. I was playing a little last year. Like, what he did was okay. He bought in. He trusted coach, and he said, I'm just going to get better. He got in the weight room, and he got huge. Like it was crazy. Came back the next year, All-American. But he could have taken that opportunity and gone one of two ways. And it just shows you, you know, the kind of guy he was and is. So.
Go ahead, Cammy.
Yeah.
Oh, I just had a quick story. I just wanted to share my favorite leadership story that I saw take place on the field, and I'll leave out names and stuff just for the sake of ease. So, Wilk, you might remember it actually. So we were in the Mountain West tournament, big moment late in the game. It was somewhere around the 6th, 7th, 8th inning. Starting pitcher still in the game, had some relievers ready to go in the bullpen, runners in scoring position. There had been some talk. It was one of those situations where go back out and we'll go batter by batter by batter, so on, so forth. 2 outs in the inning. There was a situation where the pitching coach started to walk out to make the pitching change. Catcher screamed at the dugout and said, stop, stay in the dugout, stay in the dugout. And he didn't stop screaming until the pitching coach stopped and didn't make the change. Got the guy out, got out of the inning, went on to the next inning. And so, again, that might be a little bit of an extreme example, but it was an idea that for any team to be really good, eventually it has to become the player's team. And they have to have the wherewithal and the understanding to know the situation, the personnel, what's best, and to more than anything, have the courage, you could say, to actually tell a coach, no, stay in the dugout. It's the wrong decision. We got it. And then to actually get out of it. It was still to this day the coolest leadership thing I've seen on the field in person in my life. And again, I will never, ever forget that.
I'll tell you what, if a pitcher yells at me to stay in the dugout, I'm staying. I love that. Yeah, just wanted to throw that.
I thought you were going to say I'm throwing a blow at him. I'm going to charge him and throw a Shawshank left hook and then the right quick left right.
No chance. Just you.
Whis, what do you got, brother?
I was just going to agree with Cam on that. I think we're talking about with what Ray started off at the beginning of this with the little things that you let your team have control over. It ends up being that over a trickle down effect through your entire season. I think your team gains more trust and your captains are able to take a moment like that over where it's before you're a coach giving a first and third sign or whatever you're doing out of the dugout, your catcher's already got it rolling. You know what I mean? It's that trust factor that turns into a player saying, hey, no, I know exactly what we're doing here. This guy's going to get out of this, and I know exactly what pitch he's going to throw. It's his best deal. Stay in the dugout. We'll see in one pitch. So I think it's an effect of over time, starting from the small things like BP music to getting into your Mountain West tournament and having a player tell you, hey, no, we've got this handled. Like, I trust our guys. We trust our guys on the field, and we're going to get this done right now.
No doubt, dude. And you got to give them the opportunity too when it comes game time to make those decisions and fail. You know, like prime example, if we're going into, you know, just as an infielder making the decision to pick a guy off. You know, we practice it 1,000 times in practice. Okay, well, if you're not going to run it in scrimmages and you're not going to run it in the game, then we're wasting our time. So get out there, make the move on it. And compete. We're good with you failing. We just want you to do it aggressively and be convicted in your decisions every time.
I think the common theme here, like as we begin to sort of wrap up here towards the end, like ownership, total ownership. And so I've got two freaking crazy Goldens that look like horses just roaming around, dude. Like they're just mobbing around me right now. But I think ownership is the biggest thing that I've taken away from this whole talk is, how do you empower your athletes to take ownership? At the end of the day, how do you take ownership of your mistakes, of your failures, of your success, of your team and your teammates? And Cam, that story that you mentioned just kind of gave me the chills because I can picture guys that we've played with at all different levels who totally took ownership and they were catchers and they said, no, we got this. They're like, dude, we got this. Let's go. And those were the best close-knit teams. And what do you know? Like both those teams that we were on won championships because we had really good leadership. And leadership is such a massive tool that we can use. So for the ownership, as we wrap up, like you guys can give your last 2 cents on how do you really empower your athletes to take the ownership? Ray, you mentioned like you got to allow them to fail. Failure, there's so much growth in failure. That's a big, big, big piece that we can go hours on if we want to. But how do you empower your athletes to take the ownership from the very beginning? And maybe you don't, but how do you instill that thought like, hey, man, I want you to take ownership of this team. I want you to take ownership of failing. I want you to take ownership of your guys and of your career, because ultimately it's on you guys, not us.
Whis, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it starts with the little things like we talked about, man. I think it starts with your grades. You take ownership in the classroom. What's that look like? Okay, well, we have a 3.5 team GPA standard on our team. And if that's not met, if you're not at a 3.0 as a player, you're on suspension. So take it. It's the smallest things, in my opinion, that you start with because it's the little things that are going to add up to get to that Mountain West tournament to have that ownership spot. Okay, and then in our unique situation, we have bed checks, but they're not at night. They're in the morning. When you wake up, you make your bed. That's how we take ownership of that, and that's how we start our day off. So I think it's those small things that really add up, and that's how you give them the little bit of ownership to start. And then it kind of adds up and builds up throughout a course of a year to get to that big moment where it's like, hey, no, I've taken full responsibility of everything in my life to this point, and I'm ready to do that now. So
the guys coming out of Umpqua and even just playing with the bells are better just because you're out there, bro. So just let that be known. Yeah, man. I think every little thing you can do to give these guys a piece of it. And realistically, just constant reminders. We tell them all the time, hey, this is your team. Once we start this game, all we can do is prepare you to go out and perform your best. And from then it's you. We want you as the catcher to be the guy taking the initiative, going out and talking to the pitcher when you feel like he's struggling a little bit. I want the shortstop to be the one involved in all those meetings and making sure everything's under control. The center fielder is the general of the outfield, and the shortstop runs the whole squad. So, yeah, we're going to put you in a place, but if you feel like you're out there in center field, you're getting a read for a guy fouling a ball off a little too much and I have you in the wrong place, move the position. Just make sure you move everybody with you. I'm good with whatever decisions you're making. This is your team. So just make those moves and make sure you do it as a unit.
I think one of the best ways to at least start the ownership process is just kind of recalibrating what ownership is. I think a lot of times, sometimes young guys think ownership is just taking credit when things go well, but when things don't go well, it's like, oh, that wasn't my fault. Like that was someone else's responsibility, where ownership's 100%. There's no situational ownership. If things don't go well, you have to accept responsibility for that as well. And I think teaching young kids to understand, if you don't theoretically take ownership of something, you can't fix it. 'Cause you can't fix other people as easily as you can fix yourself. You can try, but that's one of the little secrets of leadership, is you can't make other people do things. They have to do it themselves. And maybe your ego gets in the way and you think, yeah, I did that, but you didn't. The other person did. So it's just important to understand, man, if you're going to make a decision, you have to be comfortable being wrong. And if you're wrong, it's okay. Everyone's wrong. It happens. But what can't happen is you make a decision and then blame the responsibility of the outcome on someone else. That's unacceptable. And that's a hard thing to understand. And when kids experience that for the first time, they think, oh, this whole leadership thing, it's not as easy as I thought. So just getting them a little spotlight, showing them that there are prices to being leaders. You have to pay the consequences if you're incorrect. And that's one of the harsher realities of what leadership actually is.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar to what Cam said, but it's like, it's accountability. I think that you can't be afraid to fail. I think kids today and everybody's human nature, you're a little bit afraid to fail, a little bit afraid to look bad. But really what it comes down to is you have to get them into a mindset and a standard of, hey, you're focused on being all in, convicted to things and whatever we're doing, and totally taking the result out of it. If you fail, whatever. If you mess up, it's all good. Let's just move forward. So I think it's just a constant kind of ongoing cultural thing that helps them be comfortable with, hey, you know what? It's not the end of the world if I mess up, and I'm just going to go for it because that's the best chance I got. So that's really the only feedback I ever give is, what was your mindset on that pitch? Were you all in? Did you have good intent? Were you connected to your target? Nothing to do with what happened on the pitch, So that's just an example. But getting away from what people think, getting away from being afraid to fail, and then if you do, just being honest, just being 100% honest. Because one thing I always say is, hey, I don't really care if you mess up. I just care about how it affects the next opportunity or anything like that. So, Wilkes.
Go ahead, Wilkes.
Sorry, I was lagging out. One of the things that I love to do with our guys is I love to have them, in a staff meeting. And what we do is we kind of go over the mental game. We go over controlling the controllables, your attitude, your body language, things like that. When you do fail on the mound, because at some point everyone's going to fail in baseball. We play in a failing sport. If you don't know how to respond to failure, you're in the wrong sport. So what I love to do with our guys, I love for them to, just kind of fill out papers like, hey man, what's your goal for the day? Did you accomplish your goal? Having something to work on each day. Why didn't you accomplish your goal? Did you fail at your goal? And it's a constant reminder of, you're gonna fail, in the game of baseball on the mound. And what I don't like is when guys blame other people for their mistakes or their failings, blaming the pitch calling or blaming the coach for taking them out of the game. Most pitchers are pissed off when they're taken out of the game, but, is it better for the team for you to be out of the game at that point? And that's when it goes back to, our little deal that we do, the level 5 pitcher, it's all about winning. So when you get taken out of the game, you're on that fence and you're cheering for the guy that's in the game now. We're all about winning. So it's learning how to respond to failure, I think, is the biggest thing, and not just success.
Yeah, I just wanted to share a quick story about that. I know that sometimes when, you experience podcasts or things like this, it's all great and all the theory, but, I just wanted to open up and share a story for those that might be wondering how to handle those sorts of things. So as a coach, the first time as a head coach, you experience what it feels like, that feeling in your stomach, that feeling in your body, to know that everything that's going wrong is your fault. One of two things are going to happen. You're either going to crumble under the pressure and think, you know what, I don't want to feel this ever again. I'm going to just stay an assistant coach forever. And that's fine. That's not right or wrong. Or you're going to use it and it's going to motivate you in some way. And I just wanted to share a quick story. So my first head coaching position was a summer coaching position when I was 23, 24, something like that. Spent the whole year working really hard, putting together a roster, had a great plan, was happy about everything. Well, the second I realized that we don't live in a perfect world and everything fell apart, I had no backup plan. I had no secondary option. And that first year, first head coaching job, went 6-40. 6-40. 6-40. I want to repeat that. And so I tell people it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I still keep a lineup card from that summer just to always remind myself, because I said, I'm never going to feel this again. This is the worst, and I am never, ever going to feel this again. And again, I don't say that, to try and get sympathy or anything, but you're going to have to make a choice eventually. And what choice you make is up to you. And for whatever reason, that lineup, which I still have, it just is motivating in some different way. And like I said, man, just wanted to kind of open that up and share a failure. But in hindsight, like I said, man, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Real quick, what league was that?
It was the Western Major Baseball League up in Canada.
Yes. My stint there, I was up there after our World Series bid, so I joined late. And the minute I hopped on as the head coach, we were like 0-8. Good times. Go ahead, Zach.
Moral of the story, sorry, Will, I'll let you go in a minute. Moral of the story, if you're looking to hire a head coach named Ray or Cam, probably stay away. Bad background, bad experience, tough guys to play for. Ellie, give me a break.
I disagree.
Yeah, I'm playing. Go ahead, Wilkes.
I think going back to, Ray, Mac, and Cam, like, failure is how you grow. That's what motivates you, even more to be better, because you don't want to experience that failure again. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but, for me, I want to fail as much as I can, because that's going to help me grow, in the coaching aspect or me as a person, So I always implement to our players, like, if you're not making mistakes out there, you're trying to look too good, for the coaches. Like, I want you guys to make mistakes. I want you to fail, because that's how you grow. How do you guys feel about that?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, Cam, you probably learned way more from that summer, having gone, was it 6-40 or 8? Yeah. Then had you gone 40-6, right? So it's just going off what Wilkes said. It's like, man, nobody likes to fail, and that's okay. But you have to look at it as, hey, this is an opportunity to grow and get better. And if you're always looking at it like that, you're not going to be afraid of it as much. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Ray. I was just gonna say, no, go ahead, Ray.
No, like Cam, you got to understand. I mean, after that 5th game in a row, it's hard to say, hey, let's get ready to go tomorrow. Like, flush this one. Guys are looking at you like you're a broken record. But for me, it was always going back to like, my job here for the summer is just to try and help you be better. Like, it's not necessarily we're out here trying to win the championship, but if I can send you back to your coaches better than when you came, I feel like it's been a successful summer.
Weiler, how about our summer in Klamath? Buddy, we started 2-18.
2-18. It felt
and then
like
we won 20 games before we lost 20 games.
The crazy.
Talk about a failure story, man, and learning from and growing from things, man, especially with a crew. You're only going to be there with 2 months who come from a bunch of different backgrounds, different programs, different philosophies. Start 2-18. I mean, that's a death sentence for a summer team. I mean, might as well just chop it up right there. But, I mean, totally learned. And obviously we had a guy that we all know very well who totally switched that around for us. And if we didn't have him, honestly, obviously talking about Coach Nielsen here, but if we didn't have him, I just honestly think it would have been a different summer and how it would have played out. But sending that message of this is where the good stuff happens, is when you were at your lowest. And totally changed our mindset and ended up being Baseball America's hottest summer collegiate team. And it's just like, how did that transpire from where we were? Well, it's because we were kicked in the face. We were down in the dirt. But how do you respond to that? And I think that was a big piece that none of us at that time had really understood until we had it broken down for us, completely broken down, and exactly what it means to fail and how to adjust with that. And then totally, in my opinion, my baseball life that summer changed my life completely on how I viewed the game, how I viewed how I worked, how I viewed how I communicated with my players, with my coaches, with my teammates, just because of the failure pieces of what we're all discussing here.
It was the greatest summer of my life. I know of yours, I'm sure, and a lot of ours. One, Aaron Nielsen is the most incredible human being in the world. That dude is like the freaking hidden voodoo dude. Like, nobody knows where he's at, but he's just spitting wisdom nuggets to everyone and like in people's ears, like helping people grow. And what happens, it helps himself grow. Like, he's just such a great mentor to me and to those around us. So I wanted to at least plug that, because that dude he's second to none. I mean, it does it for nobody else than the people around him. Like, doesn't care about any accolades, doesn't want any fame, doesn't want to be on social media, like none of that stuff, none of the fluff, dude, that a lot of the people nowadays care about. Like, no self-promoting, no nothing. Like, it's literally just, I'm going to help as many people as I can on my time on this earth. And that's leadership. Like, he displays leadership to a T, and he's an absolute legend. He said to send his best to everyone in here as well. And then just like going through that, I think our greatest moments, like no matter what in life, we're going to have suffering, we're going to have pain, we're going to experience that, we're going to get hurt, we're going to lose somebody that we love, we're going to go through a terrible season where we're 6-40, and I'm just going to keep rubbing salt in the wounds, Cam, because that is brutal. So 6-40, and Ray Mack not doing too much better, but hey, you guys are incredible coaches, and that doesn't define who you are. But a lot of the times coaches or athletes define themselves by the results that they get rather than the experiences they go through. And I think that when you're at the very bottom, you've got to go to the bottom to get back up. Like this kid I work with, dude, he said the most profound thing. He's freaking 14 or 15 years old. And he said, it's the trampoline effect. You've got to go down to bring others up. And I'm like, what? That is so cool. I love analogies. Like, you've got to go down to bounce back up. And in our greatest moments are in moments of failure. And just like that with the gyms, we go 2-18, we run off 18-20 in a row, and the whole thing shifted, but it's because of good leadership. And there was no reason for it. Nobody wants to go to summer ball and lose. Nobody wants to stick around when that happens in a city that's got 10,000 people and the stadium's the oldest wooden stadium on like west of Mississippi. Like, no, unless you're hitting there because it was fun. But other than that, no way, right? But it goes to show all of our experiences and all the paths that we've been on and are continually going on are shaping us to where we want to be. You guys are all going to be really, 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 really good head coaches one day. And it's going to be really exciting to see. And I, of course, always want to be a part of your guys' success and be involved and whatever I can, like celebrate what you guys are doing because I'm excited for you. But all of this stuff is real. And this is real stuff that coaches and athletes and teams and parents and people are going through right now. And I think if you can learn one thing from somebody in here, it's take ownership of your career, take ownership of your life. Like, it's on you. It's not on anybody else. It's on you. Like, quit pointing the freaking blame finger, dude, and quit looking around at the stupid virus and like blaming it for why your season didn't go the way it wanted, or why you didn't get your college scholarship, or why you didn't get the cool picture of yourself doing this or walking on graduation. It sucks. I'm not gonna lie, all this stuff sucks. But guess what? Provide an opportunity to have amazing ideas like this floating around, amazing content like this floating around, and amazing words of wisdom for people out there that are dealing with real life things, that are going through real life stuff. Like Whitty, man, like can't even get back to that leadership, dude. Like beating cancer, dude, like down to his final count, should have been dead, like rises above, keeps faithful and gets through it. Like that's leadership, dude. And that's determination. That's courage. So this stuff fires me up. It gets me pumped for the rest of the day. We're going to go ahead and end it off here because my computer's going to die. But I appreciate y'all coming on here again. Dugout Coalition, once again, episode 2. We're discussing the leadership aspects, some of our best teammates, some examples of that leadership, and really just diving deep into this deal. We're going to be going 3 days a week, usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday, pending schedules on Friday, and we're going to keep it rolling. We want this content out there. If this has helped you, if this helps anybody out there, if you find some value, if your athletes can find value, send it to them. Plug them in it. Nobody's getting paid from this. We're having fun. We're just trying to help a lot more people out there, and we're trying to learn ourselves. I already learned I got like 2 pages of notes from just the last 2 deals. It's unbelievable. So I'm continuing to learn from you guys, and I hope the same all around. So I appreciate y'all hopping on here. I appreciate those of you guys who are listening. And once again, my favorite line, peace. Let's go. Later, guys.